Felix, as we continue, in your letter to the director of the Kenya Wildlife Service, you asked, are infrastructure developments more important than preserving a natural heritage? What are the implications to our ecosystem that we're going to see if this actually goes through?
There is a proposal that has been made already, and what we are seeing is that steps following up and people working really hard to make sure that this goes through. And we'll see that it's a proposal by the government of Kenya, by Kenya Wildlife Service themselves. And of course, they're looking at investment opportunities in the field of conservation nationwide, which is really important. No one can be opposed to that. The country needs revenues. We need to raise funds. Conservation itself is really quite expensive. But again, as you do this, it's important to realize the ecological aspect of conservation bodies themselves, and how do you package your activities together, if it's tourism and everything else that you do, without doing it at the expense of the natural ecosystems. Talk about the rivers that flow into these parks. Talk about the plants that are there. And the ecosystem itself, it has to be balanced in a way for you to protect wildlife. You know, people see animals out there and they just think that they're just a matter of them existing. But there's a story behind all that. This lion being born and getting raised up to a point where it's an adult lion that's now a selling product of tourism in this country. And protecting them involves management. There's also a lot of science involved in that, mathematics and all these things. So it's a whole wide concept that means also on management aspect, you need to understand communities' involvement and other stakeholders also coming in, enacting good policies as well, and look at how you're also going to protect their habitats. It's such a critical aspect. So what the government intends to do on this hotel that they want to build in Nairobi National Park, among other proposals, which we as an organization, we are in support of that. Our main problem is the construction of a 5-star hotel in Nairobi National Park. If you look at the dimensions of 5-star hotel, what it means is roads will be required, a lot of degradation of the land. Talk about a proper sewage system into that, talking about a space for parking. And then a whole process of construction coming with noise and all that. Animals don't need noise. Whenever there's noise, they tend to leave. Then you put a hotel in the park, what's going to happen? It's going to fragment the ecosystem. There's a new structure coming in and affecting all these animals. You know, when you talk about wildlife, you're talking about even the small insects, the caterpillars that crawl, and everything else, the plantation itself. So it's always going to look at, as you coming to invest, as you intend to raise revenue for yourself, or if it's the government that intends to raise revenue by calling for investors to come to Nairobi National Park, I don't really think it's a good idea. But let's think of sustainable approaches.
But Felix, this is not the first time the government is prying into the national park. We have the SGR passing through the national park. So what are the chances that this proposal will be shut down?
Of course, we all know the standard gauge railway during its construction. It actually met huge opposition here in Nairobi National Park. In Savo, it's just passing like a road. It's on the ground, dividing the park into two with a few underpasses that are not suitable for animals to pass through. Giraffes may even find it hard because they are tall animals. In Nairobi National Park, it's because of advocacy. It's because Friends of Nairobi National Park spoke. And these are the people neighboring the park. These are the people that care about this park. They spoke up and said no to that. Well, at least there was a 50% win, I would say. The SGR is supported under strong pillars that are really high. Animals are passing under it, and others are taking advantage of shade from the SGR. But again, we are trying our best, and we have employed different approaches, because basically our organization is about the people. And government is the people as well. It's me and you. That's who government is. So if people really stand to own this park and they speak against this with facts, scientific facts as well as social facts around this project, because we feel like when you set up a hotel in Nairobi National Park, there's a bad precedent that you're setting, that the next government, someone else will come and think of, if this went through, we can also think about a different hotel or something else. And what's going to happen? The park will have various centers, hotels, or all these things, swimming pools and all that. And lastly, it will turn into a zoo because it's already fragmented. It's already compressed. It's a small space as we speak. The more you continue taking the space, like it's been taken by the SGR, the Southern Bypass Road, which hived off a space of Nairobi National Park, what's going to happen is that the animals will have no more space. It's like we are the only species that have the right to inhabit this earth, but we are not. The truth is, we all deserve a space, and it's for us to give these animals the space that they deserve.
There was this lion that was roaming around, I think, the Rongai Street at some point, and I think it just intrigues me, the relationship between humans and animals. And I don't know if that's an area that the organization, your Friends of Nairobi National Park do as well?
That's really a wide topic itself. It's you speak of human-wildlife conflict, which is everywhere in this country, not just in Kenya, but even Africa. Actually, we have animals like hippos, crocodiles, and birds. There are birds that are also really, really disturbing. But attention is really given on these among the big five, the lions and the elephants as well. I come from Meru, personally, and Meru is a great space for farmers, but elephants are smart. They break out of the forests, and then they go there, what they do is they destroy people's farms. And the following day, you'll find people actually speaking bad about them, people thinking about killing them. But it's not the best thing that we can do. We are doing our best to promote coexistence in Nairobi National Park. And the biggest problem that we have, it's human-lion conflict. The southern side of Nairobi National Park is open. So there are lions that move out of the park, and they find themselves in these places where people are keeping their livestock, community bombers, the Maasai people, mostly they're the ones who have inhabited in that area. And what happens is that when they go out, what happens? So people do not want these animals to attack their livestock. They have to protect their livestock. But we have a very friendly community around Nairobi National Park. They have given their space. Their land has already been given. And today, we are supporting the conservancies model, where people give their own private farms for wildlife and their livestock to share. That is the concept of coexistence, which is really, really working. So it shows you directly in Nairobi National Park that we are really facing this problem of small space for wildlife. If you find animals moving out of the park, it really shows you that there's a big challenge that these animals are facing. Originally, they used to inhabit all areas that humans have encroached today. So, but we continue taking and taking more for them. So their future is not promised.
The future is not promised. Interesting. So there are a few questions from viewers before we continue with the conservancy that we had talked about earlier. And looking at the establishment of this Nairobi National Park, that was in 1946, right?
Yeah.
And it was land donated by the Maasai. But before we get to conservancy, let's read one question. What are the potential environmental impacts of the Kenyan government's proposal to construct a multi-million-dollar structure within Nairobi National Park, and how does it align with the park's conservation objectives? So does it align with the conservation objectives of the park?
It does not align to any document that exists. It's kind of an illegal project, that's what I'll say, because we have a management plan for Nairobi National Park. It's not anywhere in the management plan. So it's going to come up with several ecological impacts, because the land degradation itself, it's going to fragment Nairobi National Park. It's already a new structure in the park, colorful and all that. Animals are not attracted to these colors. Even when we go for bird watching, we don't wear colorful clothes, because anything foreign to them, they don't like that. So it's about, at the same time, thinking about the degradation aspect, soil erosion that is going to cause. And like I said, this is a mega project. Excavators in the park, noise in the park. So simply, just a simple environmental concept just shows you that if today you call an environmental expert and they carry out the environmental impact assessment for that project, it will be a no to such an initiative.
And I understand there's an act of parliament to provide for the protection, conservation, sustainable use and management of wildlife in Kenya and for connected purposes. And now that we're having this multi-mega billion-dollar investment, were the stakeholders duly engaged in passing this proposal?
That's not where you speak about the concept of public participation, which is very well articulated in the Kenyan Constitution. But at some point, it's misunderstood and also misused, and people take advantage of that. You just show that you did public participation. I personally haven't attended any session talking about identification of investment opportunities in Nairobi National Park. Maybe this hotel or the convention center is necessary or it's important. Maybe it's not something we should be opposing. But then we've not been called on the table, and then we've not been asked to share our opinions about it. Or look at how big is it going to be? Where will it be located? So all these questions, they are questions that we have, and we are trying to raise them with the relevant authorities, and then we see how that can be addressed. But the truth is, consultations hasn't been done. Yeah.
The president last week talked about Mambo Matatu, those who take public property and invest in private schemes or private gains. And Nairobi National Park is public property. So what does it say, or should we let Kenyans conclude for themselves?
What is happening, it's not somebody from the outside coming to take the space in the park. The park is very well protected. The park has a title deed. KWS are actually good in managing their own resources. They know all that. So you cannot touch the boundary of the park unless it's government against government. So what we are seeing here, it's Kenya Wildlife Service themselves. They have accepted that we have a great investment opportunity in Nairobi National Park because we intend to raise more money. But the thing is, this is a government approach. It's them that have allowed that to happen. But again, it's about conservation. Like I told you, it requires everybody's input. Yeah. And because it's about communities, it's about the interests of the people that are around here. What's the idea about Nairobi National Park? So we, of course, want to raise revenue, but let us be considerate and look at viable investment opportunities that are not going to hurt Nairobi National Park, and investment opportunities that are not going to take space for wildlife, opportunities that are not going to degrade the land. So what we have here, it's a government confirmed approach. It's not even a private individual coming. But of course, the implementation, they're calling for investors. If you look at what was on the newspaper, it was calling for private investment. So it's a private investor that is going to come to invest in a public land. So some of these things should also be, should be called, and then we have a discussion about it, and so that people can understand how this will be done and what are the implications later on. So
when you're looking also about the social benefits, and I was asking you about the rate of local tourism in Kenya, well, maybe some of the social impacts of this project. When I see a 5-star hotel, it's not for the ordinary Kenyan. So why would I be going to the Nairobi National Park?
It's very clear. Nobody comes to Nairobi National Park to see hotels or something else. It's a place for conservation. That's what protected areas are about, these national parks. The main concept about national parks, it was born in the United States of America with the establishment of the Yellowstone National Park. You can do a bit of research and see when that was established, the Yellowstone National Park. And this idea, after it was born there, it spread all the way to Africa because urbanization was coming up. There was that great revolution. And people realized that we are constricting the spaces for these animals. And then Nairobi National Park came up. It was meant to preserve the culture and the heritage that we have as a country, and that is wildlife. Not even tourism. That was not the main idea. But again, we need to employ our own young people. We need systems to also see that communities are also realizing benefits from these natural resources. It's a park. In fact, if you look at the Wildlife Conservation and Management Act, there is a clear definition of a national reserve and a national park. Inside a national park, you're not even allowed to go there harvest firewood. The only thing you can take, it's photos. The only thing you can leave there, it's your tracks, So there is nothing else you can do in a national park because it's protected. So what they intend to do today, it's just a violation of what we understand about parks and what they are. It's again a violation of the Nairobi National Park Management Plan that was set by an agreement between the stakeholders that we have around here. Now you come to the social implication of this. We have a government that really is talking about the needs of young people and what they need to put food on their table. Today you're talking about the agenda of houses, construction, and all this. But is this hotel coming to solve any problem that is facing me as a young person today? I don't think so. It's about the biggie people, big fishes and all that. People with multi-billion
so no sustainability in this project?
There's no sustainability in this, and even if you look at its future, maybe you talk about employment, it's during the construction. After that, it's just somebody else's thing, and that's it. So someone is eyeing about profits and using Nairobi National Park as a product to promote the hotel. But the park should be promoted by the animals that are there. It's not a building that is going to sell the park.